I'm going to talk about boot camp. Um, I was just watching Full Metal Jacket, so that movie really makes me like reminisce about my time in boot camp because it's pretty accurate to what boot camp is actually like. So first thing you do, you enlist, you go to MEPS, they look at your asshole, and then after that you pick your rate, which like a rate is a job. Every other branch calls it an MOS, but in the Navy it's called a rate. Um, I was in the Navy, by the way, so this is about Navy boot camp. And you enlist, you get your ship out date. Ship out date arrives. Your recruiter drives you to the airport. You get on a plane, and like when I was there, I met this guy, and we sat together on the plane and stuff like that. And he was reading a book, so I asked him, I was like, "What are you reading?" He's like, "I got the secrets to pass this shit," and he shows me, and it's the Blue Jackets manual from like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and he was telling me that his brother was in the Navy, and his brother gave him this Blue Jackets manual so he could study before he went to boot camp so that he wouldn't get yelled at as much. Great idea. Wish somebody fucking did that for me. But yeah, we're talking and we're like excited. We both have the same rate, and we were like, we'll get to the same duty station together and all this stuff. And more on that later. So at the airport before we went to Chicago O'Hare, I was calling my mom, my dad, and my brother obsessively. I was so fucking nervous that like, my mom and my dad are both Navy veterans, and my brother is an Army veteran. And so I'm calling them and I'm like, hey, like, I don't know what to expect. Like, I'm really like shitting my pants here. And my dad told me this is what's going to happen. And I kind of knew going into it what I was getting myself into anyway. But like, he was just telling me just for reassurance. And like my mom said the same exact things that he said. So I was like mentally preparing for this to happen. And I went back to my friend that I told him, I was like, your brother was in the Navy, so you probably know this, but like, this is what my parents said. And we talked about it, and we fly out to Chicago O'Hare Airport, and you get there and they immediately start yelling at you. You sit on the floor in perfect rows and you can't talk to anybody. You just sit there in silence waiting for the buses to arrive to bring you to Great Lakes. Some people call it Great Mistakes. But when you get to Great Lakes, they're just yelling at you the entire time. Like, if you can't handle being yelled at, boot camp is the last place you want to go to because that's all they fucking do is yell. And so I get on the bus and he starts yelling at me and everybody's like, sir, yes, sir. And he's like, it's fucking petty officer. It's yes, petty officer. And we're all like, oh, yes, petty officer, yes. And we're like freaking out. And the bus pulls up to Great Lakes. And he's like, everybody ID out. So everybody puts out their ID. And he goes down the rows and he's checking everybody's ID. And finally we get past the gate and the guy who's on the bus starts yelling at you. He's like, okay, here's what's going to happen. And he puts you through everything that you're supposed to do when you get off the bus, right? So I got off the bus and immediately they're yelling at you. There are fucking chiefs and petty officers sitting outside and they're like, go, 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 fucking go, go, go. So you get there and you have to line up on the tow line at attention. And the entire time they're screaming at you. If you're not standing properly at attention, they're fucking yelling at you to make sure that you're standing properly at attention. So you're learning and getting rewired from the second you're there. So they say you get one phone call. I called my mom so that she could call my brother and she can call my dad and tell them that I made it safely. So I'm sitting there on the phone with my mom and I'm like trying not to cry because I'm just so overwhelmed with like everything that's going on. And I'm like, hey mom, I made it safe. This is the last time I'm going to be able to talk to you for a while. I love you. Thanks for preparing me. And the only thing she says to me is she's like, wait, before you go. I go, yeah. She's like, is the guy who's yelling at you Filipino? And at the time I didn't really I wasn't familiar with Filipinos, you know what I mean? I wasn't familiar with what Filipino people look like. I wasn't familiar with Filipino culture, which drastically changes when you're in the Navy, by the way. You will be accustomed to that culture and everything like that. But I told her, I was like, I don't know. I was like, but I gotta go, bye. And we sat down on the tow line, crisscross applesauce, for probably 3 hours. And we couldn't talk. We couldn't use the bathroom. Nothing. We sat there for like 3 hours until they finally called us to be ready. So they bring us in, and you go into this giant room. And what you do is there's a box sitting in front of you. You put everything in your pockets except for like your identification, your wallet. So like your keys, your phone, whatever else, any jewelry, anything like that. You put it into the box, and then you get undressed. They tell you to undress. I mean, obviously it's separated men and women. So you're surrounded by a bunch of men, and they tell you to get undressed. So you get undressed and you're naked, and you put all your clothes in the box, and then they give you sweats and a hoodie and like a yellow t-shirt to dress in. Then after that, you go and you complete a drug test. You do all this stuff, and it's like 3 a.m, and you're doing all of this stuff. You haven't slept yet. So you sign all the paperwork, you do all this stuff, and they keep you up for a full 48 hours. You're awake for a full almost 48 hours before you actually see your boot camp division. So while they're picking out divisions, I'm with my friend the entire time, the friend that I made on the plane. I'm with him. They're picking out divisions, and they're like, is anybody here a musician? And my friend raises his hand. And they're like, okay, you're going to be in an 800 division, which like an 800 division is a music division. And they play all the music for graduations, ceremonies, and stuff on bass. So we got separated. I don't know whatever happened to him. I hope he's doing well. I don't even remember his name. But yeah, he got separated into an 800 division. And so it was just me. I had no one to, then they come to me, Division 153. Cool. So they keep you up for a full 48 hours. And these are called your P days, or your processing days. This is part of your P days. So fast forward, and it's 48 hours later. I got my x-rayed to see if I had wisdom teeth. They give you certain kinds of shots. They drug test you. They do an eye test. They do a bunch of shit. And you're awake the entire time. And it's a fucking nightmare. So I finally get to division. It's like 10 o'clock at night. And they're finally like, okay, you can sleep. So I was the last of the people to show up for my division. So everybody else that's there before everybody from the division gets there, they're on hold, which means they just clean, study. They are the ones that pass out skivvies at the part where you get naked and everything like that. And yeah, so I was the last group of people to show up in that division. So finally, I'm like, I'm going to fucking sleep. It's 11 o'clock at night. I hop in bed, instantly out. I was immediately, as my head hit the pillow, I fucking fell asleep. And next thing I know, I'm waking up to bang, bang, bang. Just these loud bangs. And it fucking scared the shit out of me. So I jump out of bed. And I don't know what to do. And finally, these guys walk in, these 3 guys. One's like a short, bald guy. The other is like this really big black dude. He was like 6'3", and he was just completely like solid muscle. And then there was this just kind of average looking white guy. And the short guy was holding a boombox over his head. And he comes in, and the other 2, the black dude and the average looking white guy, they have metal trash cans, and they're fucking banging the lids on the trash cans. And this guy, the short dude, is holding this fucking boombox above his head. and it's playing death metal, and they're screaming, get the fuck up now, and they're screaming at you, and finally, the short guy takes the boombox and he slams it on the ground and it fucking breaks. And he's running around, and there are 2 tables and there are chairs in the center of the compartment. The compartment is where you sleep. There are 2 tables and 2 chairs, and he starts going around and he's flipping the fucking tables and he's throwing the chairs, and he starts screaming at us, and none of us know what to do because we've never been given any direction on what to do at this point. So I just stop and I stand there at attention where I'm standing. Like, I'm not on the tow line or anything. I'm just outside of my bed. And they go, you have 7 minutes to shit, shave, shower, make your bed, and get dressed. And so everybody's like, we're all like panicking at this point. We're like freaking out. We're running around and we're like trying to make our beds and everything like that. And we didn't make it in time. So they PT'd the fuck out of us for like 20 minutes straight. They just PT'd the fuck out of us. And that gets done, and he's like, I am HMC. I'm not going to say his last name. I am HMC so-and-so. This is FC1 so-and-so. And this is MM1 so-and-so. We are your drill instructors. And they instructed us on what to do, right? So everybody got time to shave and shower and stuff like that. And they told us that every morning they expect us to be ready in 7 minutes. And they eventually lowered that to 5. But we'll get into that. So from then on is the rest of your P days, your processing days. So you go and like, you get a bunch of shots, which like when you get the shots, there are 2 people on each side of you. And they read your name, you step forward, they jab you with the shots. Then they read your name again, you step forward, they jab you with the shots in both arms. Then you get the infamous peanut butter shot, which the reason it's called a peanut butter shot is because you could take it and you could like squeeze it out of the syringe and it'll stay in your hand, like on your finger. And it'll just be perfectly, it's just gel, basically. And it's penicillin. So, when they give you that, dudes fucking pass out and shit. Like, I remember the way they did it for us is they had us pull down our pants to have our asses hanging out. And it was like a giant long table, basically. And we had to put our elbows on the table and fucking squat down. And the guy across from me, who I actually just recently got into contact with, he looks me in the face. And before they do it, he goes, honor, courage, commitment. And they go needle ready and they fucking stick it in. This dude just passes out. Like, he immediately just collapsed on the floor from the fucking needle. And they get him up. And he's fine. But you come out and you sit down and they make you roll out the peanut butter shot on your ass cheek. Like, they'll make you roll out. Yeah, so after you get out of processing days, you start doing basic training stuff. And along the way, you just continuously get your ass beat. Like, they'll PT the fuck out of you. I went in, I was 167 pounds when I went into boot camp. When I came out of boot camp, I was 133 pounds because they just beat the fucking shit out of you. Like, they like PT you like you wouldn't believe. And I was on an all male ship. The buildings that you're in, they call them ships. And I was in ship 6, the Constitution, which I don't know if it's still this way, but like at the time it was an all male ship. So there were no women. I didn't see a woman for probably 9 weeks. For all of boot camp, I didn't see a woman. I only saw men, which I can also get into further things with that too, but that's a different video. So you get at the end of your P days, you get your uniforms, right? So you get your uniforms, you get your boots, you get your NWUs. They dress you for dress whites and dress blues. And by the time I got all that stuff, it was way too fucking big on me because I had lost so much weight from being in boot camp and being fucking PT'd so much that like I got my stuff and it was extremely loose. To the point where like they almost had to have me go back down there and get refitted because it was that loose on me, right? So the worst PT I ever got, I'll get into this, is we fucked up before tabs. Somebody did something, I forgot what happened, but something happened. And I went and it was February. And in February, it's cold out. So what they did is they cranked the heat up all the way before they left the compartment. And it was extremely hot to the point that like you couldn't sleep because it was just so fucking hot in the compartment. Next thing you know, door gets kicked in 4 a.m. Guys start screaming at us immediately. So we get up. They didn't even tell us to shit, shave, and shower. We pushed all the beds to the center of the compartment. And then we ran in circles around the beds. And they call them rainmakers because the walls and the ceiling start to drip sweat. So they call them rainmakers. We were doing shit like that, and we were getting PT'd daily. Like, there wasn't a day that went by where we didn't get our fucking asses beat. And, like, these PT sessions would last, like, 30 to 45 minutes at a time. Like, they were really tough on us. My bootcamp division, we started out with, I think, like, 110 people, maybe. We ended with only, like, 53, 54 people. Because the guys just couldn't cut it. You know what I mean? Like, being now, like, there's so many things, like, being away from family, you don't get to talk to your family. Like, we didn't get our first phone call until 4 weeks into boot camp, and it was the only fucking phone call we ever got home. Was that one single call. We never, like, actually, I take that back. We got a call after we finished battle stations. But before that, we only got one phone call home. So, because they told us that, like, phone calls home are for good sailors, is what they told us. And they said we're not good sailors. And I remember that first phone call home, when we got that phone call home, you know, they let us, we had about 10 minutes and we can call whoever we wanted. So called my mom, called my dad, my brother didn't answer. And, you know, I was telling them about what's going on, and my mom and my dad started laughing at me when I told them what was going on. We're like, because like I was expecting them, like I was telling them, I'm like, we're getting PT'd every fucking day. Like, it's, you know, and this like lasts for 30, 45 minutes. And like sometimes we're having 2 or 3 sessions of that a fucking day. And we're just getting our asses beat constantly. And like, they're making our lives living hell. And my dad fucking laughed at me. And was like, that's it? He's like, that's it? That's all they're doing to you? And I was like, yeah. I was like, they're really going hard. And so at the end of the phone call, we're in formation and we're standing at attention. And guys, grown men, are crying. Like they have tears coming out of their eyes. And they're like sobbing because they just got to talk to their girlfriend or their mom or their dad for the first time in weeks. And like the only, you know what I mean? So I remember the guy behind me was crying, and he was like crying pretty loud, right? So I remember the drill instructor got right in his ear, like right here, and was like, sailors don't fucking cry. And it ran into his ear, and he's like, stop crying. He's like, are we a bunch of fucking babies here? And Yeah, so we got back to the compartment and they fucking PT'd us because people were crying. That's what you get from boot camp, at least in my experience. Um, so for talking to family back home, you get letters, right? So you get letters from home, and like my parents were the kindest parents ever. Like they would send me mail, and my mom was like, if there's any sailors that don't have anybody to talk to, give me their name and I will have my friends and our family write them letters. And so I went around and I talked to everybody and was like, who doesn't have people sending them letters? Who's not getting mail? And about 4 or 5 guys told me they weren't getting anything because maybe their family was absent, maybe their family didn't care. They weren't getting any letters. So my mom and her friends started writing to these sailors and they became pen pals. And they talked back and forth with these sailors through letters. And they would write about anything they want. If they wanted to know about how movies are doing at the box office, they'd tell them how movies are doing at the box office. You know, that's just the kind of person my mom is she wanted to make sure these people were taken care of. Especially because like my mom and dad, they didn't have anybody when they were going through boot camp. They didn't get letters from family. And when they graduated boot camp, they didn't have anybody. I'll get into that in a second. So yeah, my mom was writing these people letters and stuff like that. And I remember my dad it was February, so like the NBA was happening and hockey was happening, boxing and UFC and stuff like that. And my dad used to send me updates on New York Mets trade stuff and how the New York Knicks were doing. And my friends would always ask me what they're writing about, and like some people were like, one guy was like, "Do you think your dad could send some soccer updates?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I write my dad. I said, "Hey, can you send some soccer updates?" And my dad sent soccer updates. And then another guy was like, "Can you send UFC updates?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me just." And then the thing is that like my dad didn't only send these updates once. He continued to send soccer and UFC updates, and it got to the point where my dad was writing me like 10-page letters, and it was just all sports updates. And after taps, I would go into the center of the room and I would read the sports updates out loud, and guys would be cheering and hollering and all this stuff. And so um my mom, on my birthday, I was in boot camp during my birthday. My mom sent me a letter, and on the front of it, she wrote "Happy Birthday" with like a bunch of hearts. And the drill instructors had a fucking field day with this because they were like, "Oh, it's your birthday. I think you're special." And then they made me do push-ups, and I had to read one word from the card every time I was doing push-ups. So I would like go down Matthew, up, how, up, R, and like, yeah, they would PT you because they think you're special. I remember one guy got a package, and when he got a package, you had to open it in front of the drill instructors. So he opens it in front of the drill instructors, and it's a fucking positive pregnancy test that his girlfriend sent him. And I remember the drill instructors weren't like, "Man, that really sucks. Like, I hope you're okay." They weren't like that. They fucking laughed at the guy. They laughed at him, and they were like, "That's how you get for fucking around with these hoes, blah blah blah." And like, they shit on this guy and made fun of him. The most intense part of boot camp for me was I got promoted right out of boot camp. I got promoted from E1 to E2, and I got promoted right out of boot camp. And FC1, the big black dude, he liked me a lot, and he was the reason I got promoted right out of boot camp. But he tried to make me quit. So I get up and we make our beds and everything like that. And he comes over and he's looking at everybody's bed. He takes my bed and he goes, fucking wrong. And he strips the entire bed. And he goes, remake it. So I remake it. We go to breakfast. I come back upstairs. The bed's all messed up again. So I had to remake it. I remake it. He comes over. He undoes it again. And I had to remake it. I remade the bed 50 fucking times that day. And like, I will, to this day, I will never fucking make a bed again. I made the bed so many fucking times. And yeah, they tried to make me quit and I didn't. So they promoted me right out of boot camp to E2. So after you finish up all your training and stuff like that, you go to battle stations. And battle stations is a simulation. They basically have a full-size ship that they had built. And you go through it and they simulate things happening, right? Like they simulate like there's an attack on the ship. And you have to go around and you have to do damage control. You have to do set dog zebra. You have to do all this stuff on the ship. And once you pass that, you're like officially a sailor. Like you have these hats that say recruit on the front of them. And when you pass battle stations, you stand at attention, you look at the screen and there's a screen and it's kind of like dystopian. It was like, had like all this like American shit. And so like at the end of the video, you take off your recruit cap and you put on the cap that says Navy across it. And this is a really big deal. And like, this is one of the only times that like I can think of that my drill instructors allowed us to show emotion, because guys were crying, everybody's hugging each other, and we're like, we fucking made it. And then like you get your Blue Jackets manual, and like you're like technically like done with boot camp at that point. Like that's the final test for boot camp. And you have about a 3-day period where you're like technically on hold. So you like stand watch, you take photos of like the division and stuff like that, and they have photo day for the yearbook, which I actually have my yearbook. You do all that stuff, and then it's time for graduation. And graduation is it was one of the most emotional days of my life. Because I had spent 9 weeks of hell, 9 weeks of getting my ass beat, 9 weeks of getting yelled at, 9 weeks of having blisters on the back of my feet from the boots. Like, you know, like you find that you did it. Like you fucking did it. Do you know how many people have tried and failed boot camp? And you can say that like you did it. And at the time, it was the hardest thing that I'd ever gone through in my life, you know? And I remember the ship that the building was named after was the USS Midway. My dad was in the Navy, like I stated. He was on the USS Midway. And he after graduation, you stand at attention for fucking like 3 hours for graduation. You can't move. And like they tell you not to lock your knees, because if you lock your knees, your legs will give out, or like you'll pass out because of the blood flow and everything like that. So you're sitting there slightly bent knees, standing at attention the entire fucking time. And finally they finish. And they hit the bell, Liberty call, and they ring the bell, and people come flooding from the stands. And I remember my mom ran up to me, and she hugged me, and my dad hugged me, and my brother shook my hand, because my brother's not a very emotional person. I didn't know how to stand. I had spent the past 9 weeks, like, having everybody tell me everything that I'm supposed to do. You know, they tell you how to stand. They teach you how to walk. They teach you everything. And so I fucking didn't know what to do. So my parents are sitting there talking to me, and I'm standing at attention. And my dad's like, you don't have to do that. And I'm like, I don't know how to stand any other way. I didn't know how to stand any other way. So, my mom and my dad are crying, and I'm sitting there in my dress blues, my Cracker Jacks, and we're sitting there and we're talking, and FC1, the black dude, comes up to my dad and he goes, "Is this your son?" And my dad goes, "Yeah." He goes, "How was he in boot camp?" And he goes, "You've raised a great man, and he's going to go far in his naval career." And he shook my dad's hand. And he told my dad, he's like, "I tried to make him quit." He's like, "I tried to make him quit, and he wouldn't give up." And he's like, I told him, he's like, Phil Jackson went back to the Lakers, and I fucking made him do push-ups and sit-ups. Just him, no one else, in front of the entire division. And he's like, he didn't give up. And he's like, "I think he's going to be a great sailor." And, I told him, my dad told him, he goes, "What's funny is," he goes, this building is called the USS Midway." He goes, "That was my ship." He goes, "I was on the USS Midway." And FC1 calls over MM1, and he calls over your chief. And he's like, they tell him, and he goes, "Oh, no way." And like, they're sharing sea stories and stuff like that. My dad was an intelligence specialist, and so was my mom. But they're all four of them are like exchanging sea stories and stuff like that for a few minutes. And that was really cool to see. My mom met the people she was writing to, and she wanted to talk to them, and she was very kind to them. She hugged them, and she said, "Thank you for your service and what you're doing for our country." And and then my mom and my mom at one point, she goes, "If anybody doesn't have families here, raise your hand." And a few sailors raised their hands. And she went up to each of them and said, "If you'd like to, you can come out with us, and we will take you out on liberty with us." And so it was me, my mom, my dad, my brother, and then like 4 or 5 other sailors that didn't have families. And my mom and my dad paid for everything. They paid for all their meals. They bought some of them clothes and stuff like that. Like, my parents were very kind throughout this whole process. But yeah, when you get out of boot camp, it's just, like when you finally make it through boot camp, it's so emotional, because I don't know how easy it is nowadays. I went back in 2016, so like I heard nowadays they don't make you wear boots all the time. They switch off with boots and shoes. Like they swap out, which is fucking stupid. Wear the boots. Wear the fucking boots. Like, you're an adult. Yeah, it fucking sucks and it hurts, but like, you're in the military. You have to do shit like that. But yeah, do I regret doing it? No, I don't. I don't regret joining. Yeah, a lot of great memories from boot camp. Then I went to my first ship, and like, here's the thing, is I get off of the USS Constitution, and it's an all-male ship. There's no women on the ship. So it's you don't see women for 9 weeks. Like, the only women that you see are like the lunch ladies. And that's it. You don't see any other women. Right? And so I go to my first ship, and my first ship was in dry dock. So they offered us to go underway with another ship, right? So I wanted to be a sailor, and I said, "I'll do it. I'll volunteer." I volunteered, and I went underway with another ship. So I get to that other ship, and I'm walking around, and I start noticing there's no women. And I'm like, okay, like, this is interesting. So I went into the mess deck and I asked somebody, I was like, hey, where are the women at? And he's like, oh, this is an all male ship. So fucking didn't see women for weeks at a time. It was only men. And like when you, I'm getting into this a little bit too much. If you want to hear about my experience going out to sea and going on ships, I can talk about that in another video if you're interested. But yeah, that was it. Um, that's all I got for you. I hope you get something out of this. If you want me to talk about my time on the ships that I was on, I will talk about it. I can also talk about my Navy career a little bit. Did 4 years, NAMs, flocks, letters of accommodation, all that kind of stuff. I was very good at what I did, and I was a great sailor. But yeah, I'll talk about that in another video if you guys want. Anyway, that's all I got. Navy boot camp. That's what it's like. That's what you can expect. So enjoy watching this video, please.